So yes, how are producers and content creators doing in this new environment where we need to go for data, where we need to be competitive, not only in the 5 years and 10 years, and what does success mean for European power producers in content? We're straight diving into a conversation of how new business models can drive the success for film, serialized, and digital content from and with Europe. I'm personally super excited for this conversation, to having two amazing executives with really diverse experiences from Spain, Latin America, United States, Germany, Switzerland, UK, and elsewhere. Please welcome on stage Claudia Bluemhuber, as well as Michael Kaufman. Welcome. So the bios of yours basically kind of read like who's who in the groundbreaking landscape of production. Claudia is the CEO and managing partner and face of Saluveer. She started her career in venture capital, and 15 years ago she founded Saluveer, a film financing and production company. And Saluveer over the years has become one of Europe's most prolific independent financing and production company. She has produced and co-financed over 40 independent films and TV series, including the Golden Globe-winning and Oscar-nominated The Wife, and including other productions, including Under the Skin and Railway Man. I understand that you have also collectively delivered value for more than 600 million euros.
In production volume, yes.
In production volume. Michael is a veteran TV, film, and documentary producer with over 20 years of international experience. And he's currently working as a manager and producer with 5X Media, European office in Madrid, where he manages prominent writers and producers, including the Letter Boys, Anne Clement, and Juan Caballo. And previously, he held a first look deal with Moonrise Pictures and collaborated with various writers, directors, and major companies, including Paramount Pictures. His extensive credits include documentary series for MSNBC, Viacom, Emmy-awarding Queer Eye, Vibeswap, and many, many others. So with Michael and Claudia, we kind of dive right away into the state of the European and global market and what exactly it means for content creators. I checked this morning that every minute there's about 500 hours of video uploaded to YouTube. And it's been also well said that for a European customer to go any of a streaming platform, it would take about 300 years to watch all of that content. Claudia, I start with you. How is your company and your life transforming in this era of content overabundance? What are the markers that you are seeing in 2024?
Yeah, so coming initially from the venture capital side, we would always say markets are driven by greed and fear. And in the moment, at least in the entertainment industry, we are more in a market of fear, for various different stakeholders. Now, that necessarily doesn't mean that is negative, because in such a downside, you can make investments and there is innovation and disruption. But what I would say is that, you need to change right now or you will be changed. You need to disrupt or you will be disrupted. And this is more true now than ever before. And in terms of the industry, so for very personally for Saluveer, the business model that we worked on, from the financing side, is disrupted, right? So the way we worked, for instance, was, let's say, Loving Vincent, which got an Oscar nomination, been produced in Poland. And the way this was is you would sell a lot of the different territories within Europe to the different distribution companies. We could finance against that. You would then have a certain number that you would put in against GAP, which is unsold territories, and that you had the tax credit. You would keep North America as a territory, and then you would do the project, and then you would go to the markets: Berlin, Cannes, Toronto,
Tallinn.
Tallinn. Well, Tallinn is a festival, not a market. So you'd go to the market and do market screenings, and you look that you really are, competitive, and you get bids from the North American buyers, where you can then also make sure you have, for instance, an Academy Award strategy, a Golden Globe strategy, and you just make sure that you're going to have that global reach. This doesn't work anymore in the moment. So, and the reason why it doesn't work anymore is because European distribution companies, in terms of the cinema, they are fledgling right now. They don't have the money to really buy things up front.
We're going to get to your recommendations a bit later, but continue.
But anyway, with this, I'm saying that this business model is disrupted for high-end projects right now that have a global reach coming out of Europe.
So am I hearing you right? It's not only the independents, but it's also the major and the bigger players whose model is significantly disrupted.
Yeah, everybody's model is disrupted. Now, I'm not whining. As I said before, where there is, disruption, there is also opportunity. But what I would say is that we really need to make sure out of Europe that, that we will be able to also still have a global reach with the stories that we are telling. That it's not just localized content. And in the moment, what I see on the bigger independent stories that have that global reach, that are important narratives, that need to get out there, there is a disruption in the middle business model to fund them and to get them out.
We're going to get into what exactly a good business model could be right now. Michael, what are you seeing in 2024?
I mean, I'm originally from the US, but I've been living in Europe for the last 7 years. And I think what's interesting is that the US was always seen, to Claudia's point, like you would hold on to North American sales at the end to hopefully reap more, financial benefits. And now we see in the last few years, the US series made per year has significantly declined, where Europe has more than doubled in the last 10 years. And there's much more of a shift of doing co-productions in the real sense, not just Hollywood taking advantage of tax incentives or locations, but actual projects that are cross-territorial naturally. And I think we're seeing a lot more interest on the business side in Europe, where, again, to Claudia's point about fear, this is maybe a benefit. The networks and platforms are buying less original commissions, and they're doing much more of acquisition-based sales early on, where, I know in Spain, Max, Amazon, they traditionally would commission 6 to 8 originals a year, and now it's like 4 to 6. But the upside for producers and creatives is that they will buy into a project just for local territory, or maybe it's Spain and Portugal, and giving the producers the right to sell everywhere else, which is not easy. It's very hard, but it gives us more creative control. And it also, I think it encourages much more of a German, French, Spanish, or we're seeing Serbia with Spain. It encourages much more of a collaboration and in the truest sense of co-production, I feel. So I specifically invited you and 5X Media because, as Claudia is saying, the landscape is transforming a lot, and we see a kind of a new breed or a new transformation of companies in that space evolving. It's not anymore purely about financing. It's not anymore purely about production. It's a sort of integrated model, if you will. Michael, 5X Media is a very, very unique company that has started from the US, has evolved and has its roots in Israel, but in reality is actually having a major presence in Spain. What is this unique model that you're bringing together? I think it's a bit of a never-before-seen capacity that companies in that space have not yet, in the scale, undertaken. So we are based really in LA, but one of our principals, he created Keshet International, which came from a studio channel in Israel, and 12 years ago he launched it internationally. And so he took the idea of good stories are everywhere. They're in India, they're in Korea, Israel, countries that didn't have a lot of attention maybe in the US years ago, but now are actively selling and producing even locally. So our model is based on that we can work globally in the truest sense, that we look for IP, we look for strong creative partners, whether it's Spain, Argentina, Israel, Germany. These are places we're working in now. And to also invest in our projects directly. We feel if you're going to invest or try to sell something, we should be the first ones in. So we always invest in our projects. For series, right now, we're only investing in the development and paying for scripts to bring to market so we can retain some more ownership. With films, we are financing films ourselves. We're lucky because of the strength of our individual profiles. We have investment in the company, and we have investment to use for development. But for us, it's also a matter of, we have a project, for instance, that is Spanish origin. We can easily attach another company to help with the heavy lifting. And then what we try to do is find the best possible talent. That could be a showrunner from Canada or Israel, with writers who are coming from Germany, especially because I think when you look at series such as Drops of God or Paradise, these are Finnish, Spanish, or Japanese, French productions, which often have English as a focus in the language, but are local from those respective countries as well. And to me, that's a winning formula. And I think it's making it easier for us to invest in those kinds of projects because just by virtue, you're going to have more access to more markets.
But also 5X Media, so investment, production, first looks, but also talent
management.
And digital.
In digital.
Why and how those two components come into this traditionally very keenly kept and walled garden?
I think, it's obvious. YouTube is the biggest screen right now, and it has been for a while. And, I feel like it's already eclipsed me, but I'm from a different generation where I wasn't raised with influencers, except maybe Martha Stewart. But, we have to pay attention to the fact that TV's dying considerably. I mean, all of my colleagues at the networks in the US say, despite, for instance, the History Channel has a very strong white, middle America male viewer that loves Vikings and Nazis. So they'll still program for them. But
I think you basically set the first shock quote of the TDS this year.
Oh, God. So basically what we see is the networks, again, Claudia made a really good point about fear. It's like constant. But the networks are afraid of changing course because their core viewership, whatever channel, might be solid, but the numbers used to be, for History Channel, it used to be 5 million. Now it's like 300,000 on a good day. So what we're noticing is, platforms are picking up the speed. There's much more, more international. I mean, even things like Borgen from Denmark are raiding in the US, which I think 10 years ago, most Americans wouldn't even be able to place Denmark on a map. So I think for us, because of that, or one of the reasons, talent and digital are very key. Because the brands at the end of the day are going to be paying for everything more and more. We see that on shows like Lupin for Netflix. There was heavy brand sponsorship. And so that means making sure that the brands get what they want. And they want, they want influencers, they want built-in talent with huge numbers and audience. So we early on, we brought in a division, actually a person who had a company in Sydney. It was one of the most successful digital influencer agencies. And we brought him to LA, and we launched a digital tier, which it's hard because it's also competing with our actors or producers who have years of experience. But we have to find a way to integrate all of this together because it's about packaging in a smart sense so that we can ensure a sale. But this, for me, has been a big shock in our industry that thanks to things like the Kardashians or Real Housewives, those people become bona fide talent and brands of themselves. So we have to start thinking of how to integrate them into content as well.
So let me kind of recap here. So traditional production pipeline, keen on stories, global outlook, integrated financing, integrated talent management, pooling talent all over the Europe and all other places, as well as a digital arm. Claudia, how does that sound to you? How silver reel, coming from this very celebrated, award-laden landscape on independent content, are those things on your mind, how you are evolving your business model?
Well, as I said before, we're in a time where you're either disrupt or you're being disrupted. You either change or you will be changed. And so you need to embrace it. We need to embrace that change, and we need to see the opportunities. So, you know, and I totally, you know, support what Michael is saying. I see this industry as, you know, more or less like 4 building blocks, right? You have talent, you have capital, you have IP, and then you have distribution. So that the 4 building blocks, how, you know, you can see that. And there's disruption in every single one of these 4 building blocks. And every single one of these 4, you always need all the 4 building blocks if you want to do something that's successful and that has a global reach. If this is something that you want to do, right? You can also say, I want to be in the local part, and that's totally fine, and that is valid as well. But if you want to do something that has a global reach, you always have to look at these 4 different blocks. And currently, and there's always, the power is shifting within these 4 blocks. And also, the changes are different in the 4 blocks. And right now, I mean, what we are seeing really, I think, is that a lot of the power is shifting to distribution. So distribution, you know, 2019 was the last time that kind of like the more traditional and linear TV was at the same time usage of the audience, and then after that it goes like this, right? Right now the audience goes to digital, to YouTube, and so on. You know, so we have to take that into consideration on the distribution side. 11%
of global viewing on TV is on YouTube, 25% of total video consumption in the world in YouTube.
Yeah, so I think as content creators, we need to embrace this. And I think these worlds, you know, I come from a world, being a dinosaur, that, you know, the film industry was the film industry, and the television industry was the television industry. And initially, you know, when I started out in venture capital, obviously, the internet just started. So, and all these building blocks were very much segregated. And this has changed. So if you're telling me, what is your business model for the future? We are trying out different things, right? We're trying out to do integrated platforms, you know, distribution platforms. You know, we're trying out, you know, various things with partners that we have been working in the past. But we also will need to embrace a culture of failure, which it's very difficult in Europe to embrace a culture of failure.
But it's very normal in venture capital.
But you have to do that, because not everything that we're going to do is going to be successful. But we will have to invest heavily into that, and we will have to invest heavily in distribution, and also in potentially distribution and marketing that's fueled by AI, if we do not want to be, again, in a position, and I'm speaking as a European right now, that, you know, there were the big studios, then everything moved to tech. You know, now it's actually, it's Amazon, it's Netflix, you know, it's Apple, it's Google. There's none of the European distribution platforms are out there that, you know, can actually compete with that. And if we're losing the European way of distributing, we have 3,000 cinemas, let's just stay at the old place, in Europe. You know, we can't like try to, you know, in the moment there is not a way to, you know, serve these with a marketing campaign at the same time and have some sort of market power there, right? So there's things that we need to do right now. We need to invest heavily in these, in distribution, embrace AI potentially as a way also to reach audiences, to synchronize marketing, so that as Europeans, we will also be able to, again, globally have some narrative that we can, send out in a way. And I think that is important because, and that's my last point there, I think in America and in China and in Russia, entertainment is seen, or narratives are seen as soft power. And they are translated into different, I'm now talking geopolitics, right? In Europe, we see it as culture. We don't really see it as soft power very often, but it is soft power, and we need to be understanding that as well.
And especially in the present geopolitical context as well.
Yeah. So I can't answer you that this is the new model. There are a lot of different models, but I do think we need lighthouse projects. I do think we need to embrace AI, and I do think we need to make really sure as Europeans that we understand what we have and that we leverage the power that we have in terms of this of this market.
So soft power through the content. Can I throw a bit of a devil's advocate here? So you said that distribution is a key, and it's very well known that we do lack the kind of the reach and the oomph of some other platforms which come different parts of the world, understanding that we have a limitation of capital also on the venture side, and that's been well documented at the state of European tech as well. So less money to production, more money to distribution and platforms, and building on homegrown stuff.
I mean, look, again, this is like more the old model, but if you look at box office in, I think, 2020, in Europe, in 2023, production was up, audiovisual content, but the distribution and box office for European production was down, and it was at this lowest ever. So I think it was at 26%, and then 74% was mostly American, but also and the rest international content. And so I think the point is that really that shows you something. We are not there in terms of the distribution of our own content.
And maybe we're not there where the customer is.
Exactly. And with the fear as well, what we're seeing is that there are gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers right now are in distribution companies, broadcaster streamers. A lot of the executives right now, they are afraid to lose their jobs. Hence, they are afraid to make decisions. So they'd rather not do a decision or buy the fifth series with Dwayne Johnson, or fifth feature film with Dwayne Johnson's, because if that goes wrong, nobody can tell them, yeah, but you bought that Dwayne Johnson thing, and then it was Dwayne Johnson, how could it go wrong? But anything that's not that standard and generic, it could be said that they did the wrong choice and they might be fired. And so I think what we're seeing is that we're not reaching our audiences right now because a lot of it is generic because of the fear. So with YouTube and others, it's very targeted towards audiences, and I think content creators on the filmed entertainment side, we need to learn from that.
We have an extraordinary case recently from France where one of the French YouTubers actually went to climb the Everest, disappeared, summited, came back, made a documentary, launched it in French cinemas, 310,000 admissions in 2 days, later released on YouTube, 11 million views. And that has been a kind of a big splash in that particular ecosystem.
I will say, just to add to that comment, UGC is still, I think, with younger demographics, that's where people gravitate towards. It's authentic, it's heartfelt, it's real, it's not manipulated. And I think we have to also embrace that, especially coming from a Hollywood perspective, that there are emerging models that are taking over, whether we like it or not. And I will say on the financing side, what I find inspiring is that because everything is being broken and dismantled in many ways, whether it's these mega mergers and acquisitions in Hollywood and also in Europe that are taking away more independent commissioners and programmers, for instance. I think we're also seeing an uptick, at least in Spain, family offices capital venture groups that traditionally would not invest in entertainment are now looking to invest in entertainment because there's significant tax rebates. Like in Spain, we have a 25% tax
That's exactly
incentive.
where I want to get. You know, we talk about raising the competitiveness. Why Spain? We particularly talked about it. Why are like new competitive operations coming from European territories? And we've seen Spain as an extraordinary case. Why it made your operations to specifically put in Spain?
I think Spain, you know, considering our principals worked a lot early on, you know, 20 years ago, bringing formats like In Treatment to HBO, they are very entrepreneurial, and so they look at the business side. And Israel is the third biggest exporter of scripted content to the US, but it's a teeny tiny country. I mean, it's less than 10 million people. So we kind of looked at that as a case study, and at the reverse, Spain has a significant population. They have a touchstone with Latin America, language-wise. Same with you know, North America, but they weren't in the top 8, let's say. So when until Money Heist, which was a big breakthrough moment, I believe, for Spain, it became a global phenomenon. It spanned, you know, it created additional formats, local territory commissions, in addition to countless sales. There was definitely an upgrade in the system in Spain. We now have Europe's second biggest studio. Netflix has kind of shifted operations from Amsterdam to Madrid as a big base. You know, ITV's there, Studio Canal, Sequoia, which we're very pleased to work with, and this is, you know, because of the content like Money Heist, and other projects too that just got, maybe it was a combination of the right time, network promotion, and good story. I think it kind of opened up the market in a way that, you know, we have co-productions all over the LATAM, for instance, Europe. Like I said, Amazon's doing a project with Spain and Serbia, which to me are not the easiest 2 countries to connect content-wise, but it's happening. I think also there's been an interest in European or non-Spanish talent to work in Spain on Spanish stories. We have projects with producers like Ann Tomopoulos, who did Drops of God, or Gideon Raff, who did Homeland. They have worked in Spain. They're keen to work more in Spain. It's a great place to work and to produce, I think. But I feel also because of the government's push to make Spain a much more attractive business operation. The Canary Islands, I think it's like 55% of a tax rebate, which probably nets out at about 40-some%. The Basque region is now 65%. So it's a very attractive market to do business in as well. And locations are, you know, Game of Thrones shot there, The Crown shot there, so our geodiversity is pretty nice.
So I start from the end. Locations, infrastructure, capital, also not on a regular way, cash rebate, and then actually on a very national ecosystem, a global talent. And that makes it an extraordinary hub also for global operations. Am I correct?
Yes.
We have a very short amount of time. We already have kind of seen that this whole idea of this fragmented value chain of companies kind of sitting in their buckets and doing their things, it seems that it's kind of reaching its end in many ways. What Europe needs to do right now in order to make this a flourishing ecosystem? I don't want to say again, but in a kind of a principle of how can we kind of raise our game to the top, understanding that we have a new period of coming up, we can do extraordinary policy changes, we can catalyze financing, we can bring in the family offices, we can embrace the digital understanding that our regions are more global than purely national. What is the sort of the priority list if you look at the big picture right now? Claudia, I start with you. Be very candid.
Very candid.
Please.
So there are big picture things we can do, and then there are very detailed stuff we can do.
Both,
right?
please.
So if I come from the financing side, we already have amazing initiatives like the European Investment Fund, like Media, Creative Europe, and so on. I think And I've seen that coming from the venture capital industry. It really did help. The EIF did really help, to, build this ecosystem. But I think in terms of the investment side, I think we need to be faster than we are right now, and we need to be flexible in reacting. If I look at Europe as a whole from a financing perspective, I see tax credits in Spain, I see tax credits in Hungary, I see tax credits in Poland. In all of the different countries, so we shot in Hungary, we shot in the Czech Republic, and the banks, for instance, over there, they do not finance the tax credit. So I think one thing that the European Union could do is guarantee, obviously every country wants to have their tax credit, it's all like federal. But what could be done is, because there are already guarantees out there could be a guarantee for European tax credits so that actually, and it's harmonized and it's standardized, so that actually this market becomes a more standardized market and it's going to be interesting for financiers to really invest into that. Because right now it's not even seen as a business as such. It's too small, it's too fragmented. And actually, that's what Europe can do. We have a huge market. If we are able to take out the fragmentation in some way, shape, or form, not exactly knowing how to do that, but maybe like a guarantee. On the project side, that could really help. Because what happens right now is in countries like Hungary or others, the big studios come in from America and they take the tax credit, they don't have a problem in cash flowing, and all the independent productions that go there and want to benefit from that are actually have a problem, the European ones. So that's one thing on the project side. On the company side, we need to make sure that we need to make sure on the company side that we actually really build companies. The way we could do that in Europe, for instance, is that we have certain terms of trades with European broadcasters, so that the producers, they get their licenses back. It's clear they can build a catalog. They can create equity value in their companies, which right now is a difficult thing to do. And then I have a third one, which is I think we need to have lighthouse projects that embrace AI on the production side, but mainly also on the marketing and distribution side across Europe. We need to make sure that on also the investment side or the creation side that we invest in gender equality as well, and that is something that I believe very strongly in. From 2015 to 2024, female representation in the content creating industry in Europe only rose from 19 to 24%. So that is not good enough for Europe. And then last but not least, I think we should really try to create a force. If we somehow could launch something where we could have European productions, that we have amazing European productions, but we could actually market them across, for instance, 3,000 screens that we have in Europe, right? And we have a marketing initiative, and those screens are really used. We can build talent, because right now, European talent doesn't mean much globally, right? We can build talent, and we can build value. And I think that's my last one. Sorry.
Build talent, build value. Michael, what we need to do to make Europe exciting in the world?
I agree with Claudia, and I also feel what I've noticed in Spain, it would be great to have, as a new European citizen, thankfully,
welcome,
especially in these times, I do believe in the power of the EU and the Commission, and I think it would be great, to Claudia's point, if there could be some kind of support by way of, it's a cultural touch point for our countries to promote, safeguard, and invest in homegrown talent and content. And I think, we have a project that takes place in the Middle East and in Spain and the Netherlands, about the rise of xenophobia, Islamophobia, racism, economic divides. And I feel part of our job as producers is to help create stories that, get people talking. We're not a news service, but I do think this work we do needs to also be embraced as a tool to, be part of the conversation in society. It needs much more support. Like we said earlier, the risks are high. People are, they want to make money hand over fist, and I think that model has been clearly dismantled. I will say the last thing. We started talking to technology companies, which we feel it's incumbent upon them, since they're using all of the data from audience metrics beyond reason, that they should also be forced to, in my opinion, put some kind of investment towards content creation in local markets. I would love to see the Googles and Metas be part of that process. So, which maybe is a bit controversial, but I think given that they use our information anyways, we should be getting something from them.
So, from culture to soft power, having harmonizing investment landscape across Europe, building talent through stories as well as scale in terms of the screen, and making tech to invest in content. I think I at least have a handful of insights to take home, think about, and implement. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you.